Welcome back to The Big Picture. Joining us right now is Columbus City Attorney Zach Klein. Hello.
Hey,
Thanks for coming.
Happy
We're glad you
Thursday.
came back.
I feel like a regular. I need two more appearances and I'll be part of the show.
Yes, we'll have you next week if you're willing. Okay, well, we are talking about, when I saw this come down from your office, I was like, oh my gosh, the Russian deli on Linworth, because I grew up around there. What happened there, and how did this get on your radar, and what were the violations that they were breaking?
Yeah, first of all, the deli's still open.
Okay.
That actually is, not being flippant. A lot of people have asked that. Is the deli still open? The deli was completely separate business from the daycare. But what happened was the Division of Fire was doing a routine inspection at the deli. And then saw what appeared to be a daycare operating on the premises. So they, kind of moved next door to see what was going on. And lo and behold, it was like a daycare operation where kids were getting picked up and dropped off. They had no credentials, licensed by the state of Ohio, not us, but no credentials from the state of Ohio, no operating smoke detectors or carbon monoxide detectors. There was a large well in the center of the playground where kids could fall into. The fencing around the property had holes in it that kids could fit through and run out into busy 161, if you're familiar with the area there in Linworth. And so the fire department issued an immediate order for them to shut down immediately. And then we had picked up the ball and took it to court to make sure that they're permanently closed until they're licensed, until the well is secure, until the fencing's secure. Look, I understand and appreciate, we have a daycare problem in our country. It's very expensive. It's hard to find good quality daycare. I'm sensitive to that fact of parents are struggling to find that. But obviously we have to have safe daycares. And this place, unfortunately, was not safe.
How many children were being watched there?
I don't have the exact number. It was enough to draw the fire department's attention.
Okay. And so what are these families going to do with their kids now who are relying on that daycare?
I don't know. I mean, I think about them just as a parent of an 11 and 13-year-old. We had both kids in daycare at one point. Gosh, it's extremely expensive. And, you're looking to go to work the next day and all of a sudden you find your daycare is out of order and you can't drop your kids off. That's a significant problem. So I hope that they're able to rely on friends, family, or find additional accommodations. But it wasn't safe, unfortunately, for their kids to be there. I mean, heck, an open well, like a huge cistern in the middle of a playground. How dangerous is that?
And, when we talk daycare ages, we're talking young kids. We're not talking, 10 plus. Yeah. We're talking,
young kids.
2 to 7-year-olds almost.
Absolutely.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, and we know your office is really vigilant on cracking down on nuisance properties, but what else are you guys doing to track down these unlicensed daycares?
Well, so, this is a separate issue from, what popped a couple months ago with the Somali daycares and kind of more of the conservative MAGA folks targeting daycares out of reports in Minneapolis. This is a completely separate thing, the Russian daycare. But what we did do back, a couple months ago was meet with the Somali business owners who, by the way, are legitimate daycare operators who are licensed by the state of Ohio, who have all the electronic payments in order to avoid fraud, because they had vigilantes showing up at their daycares with guns. And can you imagine on the flip side walking your kid into a daycare and there's these armed vigilantes yelling at you, pounding on the door to get in? So looking to strengthen the city code to make penalties stiffer and harsh for folks that are disturbing that folks that are trying to and threaten and intimidate folks who are trying to drop off their kids, and then being a resource as my office, a liaison to the Division of Police, so that these folks can file trespass authorizations. So that if you're not supposed to be there, you shouldn't be there. It is a daycare. There are kids and there are a bunch of weirdos and scary people out there, and we don't want them intermixing with our children.
Yeah. So let's pivot. If we want
wait,
to.
I have
Otherwise,
one more
you got it.
question.
Okay.
Yeah, no. So, what is your messaging for the daycares out there that maybe have trouble with licensing and permitting, and maybe are behind on things like that? What can they do? What resources are available for them?
The licensing is done by the state of Ohio, so I would encourage them to reach out to that regulating entity. I'm not in the business of playing gotcha. I know there's a daycare problem. These people are hard workers. They don't get paid a lot of money. The folks we drop our children off to every day. But at the same time, we want to make sure that they're safe and sanitary conditions for our kids to be able to thrive. So I would just encourage folks, if they're struggling with a licensing issue, to reach out to the state of Ohio, or if it's a safety issue, you feel free to contact. If they have any questions, to contact the office or contact a contractor to rectify the safety issue, like putting correct fencing up, etc.
Okay. Right. All righty. Yeah. Let's switch gears now.
So let's circle back. We talked about a little bit of this at the beginning of the show, of this new report that gun violence has dropped significantly, really, in the past 5-6 years here in Columbus, down like 64%?
61%.
61%.
That's a lot. What do you think about that percentage? I mean, that's a big percentage in, I believe, a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I immediately think of the hard work that was done by the Columbus Division of Police, by the city elected officials, by groups like Mothers of Murdered Columbus Children. Like, this was a community-wide effort. And I think that you're seeing the fruits of not only a personal investment by police, by groups like the Moms, by city elected leadership. It's a personal investment, but also a financial investment. It was investing in law enforcement, investing in violence interrupters to make sure that violence doesn't escalate, that beefs don't escalate to gunshots. And so, like, this collective effort, I think, was a community-wide driven success story.
Because I don't think anybody can refute that. Really, coming out of COVID, the city of Columbus had a rough few years in terms of gun violence. And, if you can, a little more detail of, what was done. I mean, obviously we've seen Columbus police go out into the community and really try to shift that view of themselves of, hey, we are here to help you. Talk a little bit about some of these efforts done at the city level to make sure that the community knows that they can turn to, the men and women out there who are hired and to protect.
Yeah. The Columbus Division of Police has like a twofold role, right? The first is, and obvious, is enforcement. Like, who are the bad guys? Who are the people committing the crime? How do you find them? And then it's up to prosecutors like myself and the county prosecutor, even the U.S. attorney, put them in jail or put them behind bars. They're dangerous people. But that only goes so far and is only as effective if you don't have trust from the community. And that's where I really give Chief Bryant and her executive team a lot of leadership, or a lot of credit, because they have spent the past 5 years really building a strong relationship with the community so that there is trust. Now, is it perfect? No, but there has made significant strides across the city of Columbus by the outreach that the Division of Police has done to build those relationships, because the more trust you have with the Division of Police, the more effective policing you can have in a community. The more folks are willing to give tips of who the bad guys are. The folks are willing to participate in gathering evidence so that we have strong cases for prosecution. It's like, but there certainly was a time, and it still does exist, but I think it's gotten better, where 10 people saw the murder happen, but no one had any information to provide. How do you break down that? Well, you break that down, that barrier down, by having strong police-community relations. In addition to that, there's a financial investment that goes to summer youth programming, whether that's jobs, whether that's violence interrupters. And then, like I said, the community, like the Mothers of Murdered Columbus Children, a lot of the domestic violence advocacy grows because like a chunk of those numbers were domestic violence homicides. And like just that community push of folks that care so much, maybe because of a personal loss of their own, that are pouring their heart and soul out to make our community safer. But I will say, the numbers are excellent, but cities still have to wrestle with a perception problem. The numbers show the city is incredibly safe. Like, there's crime, but there's 1 million people that live here. But when you look at how safe downtown is, how safe Easton or the Short North is, and then you compare that to perhaps the perception of some of those areas, like, we still have a perception problem that we have to overcome, that you can use the data to help overcome the perception, but people have to still feel safe to leave their house to go to the grocery store in Linden or the Hilltops.
And I know that's a point the mayor's talked on a lot, is that when it comes to crime in this city, that it is often perpetrated by the same people or a very small group within the city. And, it's been a hard effort to, I guess,
keep the guns out of people's hands.
The people who, out of the wrong hands. Then obviously, making sure that young kids have something to do so that they don't fall into that pattern. And that comes down to those summer youth programs as well. So,
and I was going to ask you, with the City of Columbus curfew, obviously it's a parent's responsibility to keep track of their children, but how is your office going to like really try to help enforce that and hold people accountable? Because I do believe that this curfew, it wasn't really enforced that well last summer.
Yeah, so from a pure like authority jurisdiction standpoint, my office handles misdemeanor crimes in the city of Columbus. Like, we do not handle juvenile crimes and we do not handle felonies. So a lot of those
Can you?
No, that's a dictate of state law. I don't have the authority. Like, this is the way the county prosecutor's office is set up under state law, and the way my office is set up under the state law and the city charter. A lot of that is driven, and the decisions from a prosecutorial standpoint are driven by the county for truancy violations. I will say, I think that we do need to have curfew enforcement, especially as the summer comes on. Like, why are kids that are 12 or 13 years old out at 2 a.m? And there is a parent responsibility for that. And police have a role to play, but so do parents. And we need parents to step up, and we need police to step up.
What else needs to happen? I mean, that 61% is really good, but there's still, some room to improve. What else do you think we can do better in the city?
Well, look,
for gun violence.
Yeah, we have to. I think when you look at the significant chunk of that 61 that's domestic violence related, speaking of the county prosecutor's office and the Office of Violence Prevention, those three, myself and those two, have partnered together on this domestic violence push. Education about domestic violence, how you spot it, because a majority of those domestic violence homicides, they were a result of defendant suspects who had very little to no interaction with the criminal justice system. So that's not someone who fell through the cracks in the criminal justice system. That just means that there are family and friends who know about this abuse, and they're the front and only line of defense to pull that person out that ended up as a homicide. So like, how do we get folks to break down cultural barriers, socioeconomic barriers, that domestic violence is bad. If you spot it, there are people and resources to help, and that we need to give people the help that they need, so that they don't end up as a homicide victim. And you look at that chunk, of the number of domestic violence homicides out of last year's homicide total, you'd have even more significant reduction. And on top of that, we'd have to continue to double down on investing in kids, and then, I think there are common sense gun laws. That's been a legal battle that we've had with the state of Ohio, to hold individuals accountable who are using firearms in our community, but also at the same time make sure our firearms are locked up and not accessible to children. And we've seen way too many instances of firearms being found in couch cushions or on the kitchen table, and kids pick them up as little as 2 or 3 years old and end up discharging them, killing themselves or someone else.
And that's some legislation the city's tried to push forward, as well as safe storage laws.
Yeah, we've passed it. We've been sued. It's ongoing litigation. But we'll continue to keep our head down and do what we think is right for the people of the city of Columbus, and a little bit of common sense. But I will say that all of this, including whether it's the Russian daycare or nuisance abatement properties, like the community involvement is so important. Like, having a community advocate, having someone who's giving tips to the city or my office or the division of police about drug houses. And it starts with community, which is why, tonight, for example, we're doing these block by block initiatives and going out. We're going to be on the east side tonight at 6. Come by. You may have a tip. I bring the police, I bring code enforcement, because it's my job as city attorney to fight crime, to make sure people have a healthy, safe place to live, to make sure kids can thrive. But I can't do it alone. I need the community's help. And while we have some good ideas at City Hall, the best ideas come from the neighborhoods.
Right.
Awesome. Zach Klein, thank you for joining us today.
Appreciate y'all.